Hey Roberto, this is the testing for your JZX110 1JZ-GTE VVT-i into IS200 plug and play harness. Obviously it's completely brand new built, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through all of that so you can see what it looks like underneath. So bear with me a second and we'll be back. Right, so that's what it looks like underneath in the build process there. So starting off, we're going to go through the entire harness, how it's laid out. We're going to go through all of the subsections that are on there. That's a new addition that we've added on, so we'll explain everything that's going on there. To start off with, inside the ECU box itself, and obviously this is in your engine bay, you've got your grommet, which is going to slide into the normal slot over there. Coming inside, you've got all of your 6 ECU plugs that are there. We've got your MPX device for translation. You've got your patch harness, which goes to your 2 IS200 plugs that are in your ECU box already as standard. And then you've got your black and your grey and your blue body plug, which just plugs straight into there. And that's everything inside the ECU box over there. Making our way down, just outside the grommet over here, we've got your igniter plugs that you can ignite your mount your igniter up at the top of your strut tower there. Obviously it needs to be earthed through its mount. This is your igniter, so we are testing it with your igniter. And then also out of there we've got your 2 resistors to remove the 2 automatic gearbox codes. Obviously it's an automatic ECU, and we need those to remove those codes, as well as the ATEMU device, or automatic transmission emulator for long. So that's also in there as well to get rid of all those codes. And part of testing will go at the end and you'll see there's absolutely no codes related to the automatic gearbox there, even though it's no longer present. Coming up along there, then obviously this is going to run, alongside there towards the back of the engine. At the back here, then it's going to have one little breakout, which is going to go to an 8-pin DTM plug. That's for your injectors. So now even on the standard management harnesses, we are putting the injectors on a sub harness, and this is due to a lot of people wanting to maybe start with a standard ECU, but then flip over to an aftermarket. This is going to make it super easy to change your injectors if you go with an aftermarket ECU. Again, you can just unplug it, phone us up, let us know what injectors you have, and we can make you a new harness, little harness section, unplug this, plug the new one in, change your injectors around. All right, coming up a little bit further over here is going to break out for your cam sensor, which is the back of the motor here, and the ground. So in this case, obviously, this is a 2JZ-GE motor. So I'm just grounding over there, but yours will be grounded on the flat piece of your manifold that sits over here. Now, in terms of this main harness, Bosch wideband knock sensors. So again, if you go aftermarket, really nice and super easy. You can just phone us up and we'll build you another sub harness, and you can change over to Bosch knock sensors. Because of standard ECU, we've obviously got our fuel pressure up vacuum solenoid plug over there, and we've got our PRG solenoid plug over there. So those are there for you as well. We've also got your power steering pressure switch. I'm just plugging in this Toyota map sensor just to make the code go away. This will obviously go into your power steering pressure sensor that's in your power steering line. If you don't have one, you can use your old map sensor from your IS200 just to plug in, just to get rid of the code. It's not necessary to actually fit it, but if you have it, great. If you don't, use one of these, it'll all work fine. All right, then also coming out of there, we've got your AC plug. So that obviously plugs directly into your AC over there. That's all done for you. All right. And also coming out of here, which in this particular case is just up here for now because of where this throttle is located, is your throttle plug. What we've actually done with the throttle plug here is obviously we've got all the connections, you know, the TPS, the drive-by-wire motor, and the pedal position sensor are all included in there. What we've also actually done is we've included an IAT, or intake air temperature sensor. Obviously that's currently done by your MAF, so we split that between those two there. So again, it's if you need to go aftermarket ECU, you can change over to a Bosch drive-by-wire throttle body. We can also fit an IAT sensor directly into this plug, and this plug would normally push down, go underneath the intake manifold, and then plug into the throttle there, and obviously you can run an IAT sensor to the pipe coming up to your intake manifold over there. Okay. And the last and final one that comes out here is going to be your starter and your gearbox one. So you can see down there, there's your starter solenoid plug over there. And then it also breaks off and goes all the way along here. That's your reverse switch, and that's your speed sensor over there. And we'll be testing the reverse switch and the speed sensor as part of the test that we are going to carry out. All right, so that's that little middle section that breaks out there. And then we're going to come along here, and then we're going to break out for your coils. So we've got your coils 1, 2, and 3. Well, that's actually 1, that's actually 3, and that's actually 2. If you know the firing order of a JZ, you'll know why that makes sense. And we've also got your VVT-i solenoid coming out here, which sort of breaks out here and makes its way around there and plugs into your VVT-i solenoid there. Come a little bit further along, and then we break out. Now in this particular case, I've got it running down here just to plug into the lambda sensor over there, but obviously normally it would run, you know, across here and then have a little stand where it goes in there and plug into the lambda sensor there. This is just a weird manifold we've got onto there, so that's just dangling down there, but obviously that would normally go and then run along there. Coming further down here, we then break out and we go to your crank sensor, which is over there, your alternator, which is over there. And then what we've done is we've put the coolant temp on a separate plug. Now you're seeing 3 wires and you're wondering why we got 3 instead of 2. What it is basically is if you guys go with a aftermarket ECU, we've got the special MPX device that uses analog signals. So in your JZX110, JZX171, JZX100 is obviously slightly different, it already has it, but you'll see there's a bolt in the front next to the coolant temp sensor for the ECU. So while we put 3 in there, so if you go aftermarket, we can change this harness section and add that in because we need a separate coolant temp signal for the different MPX device related to an aftermarket ECU. Okay, and then the other thing we're breaking out for here is your mass airflow sensor. So again, this is your mass airflow sensor. You did send it, so we are testing all of your parts that we have on here to make sure they work, and happily they do. All right, so hopefully that's really nice and easy, and hopefully you guys are okay with what we do in here. Like I said, this is all just because we're getting a lot of queries of people obviously wanting to maybe start with a standard management ECU for a JZ swap and then going, oh, I want to change to aftermarket. What we decided to do is we'll do all of these on sub blooms here, just so that when you do, it becomes super easy. You can change the wideband NOx sensors, you can add an oil pressure sensor, you can change your throttle to a Bosch drive-by-wire and add an IAT sensor. You can change your injectors for, you know, whatever size is relevant for your particular application. We are open to suggestions if you guys think there's anything else you want to add in. I did have a thought about possibly adding in fuel pressure as well. Maybe making a 3-wire DTM plug somewhere in the harness that'll just break up. Maybe here with the injectors, that'll be for a fuel pressure sensor. So please let me know if that's something that you think would be useful in this particular case. Obviously they would be blanked off with a standard management ECU, but they'd always be there ready for you to use as soon as you needed to. Okay, right, so again, hopefully nice and easy. So you've got ECU box, all plugs in there, it comes out there, goes around to the back of the motor. You've got your injector harness plugging off there. You've got your breakout here for your cam and your earth. In the middle, you've got your massive breakout for everything that's going underneath. So your NOx sensors, FPU, PRG, starter, gearbox, in your case, throttle and all of that type of things as well. And it just carries on along here. Breaks out here for your coils, goes down there. Breaks out for crank, alternator, mass airflow sensor and coolant temp sensor. And then this one breaks out for your lambda sensor and your air bypass valve, which obviously plug over here. All right, so what are we going to test today? Right, because it's a plug and play for an IS200, what we're going to be testing is, and I haven't listed down here, but we will be doing the immobilizer, which is removed. So we're going to look at the ambient temp, so that's the temperature inside the vehicle, make sure that's working. We're going to go and look at the charge light and the oil pressure lights. That's your alternator and oil pressure red light on there, so that all works. We're going to go over to the OBD2 machine, make sure that's communicating, which it is. We'll go through that. Then we're going to test the reverse switch. So we're just going to bridge it with our wire, and then exactly what your gearbox is going to do, and you'll hear the buzzing on the dash. Then we're going to test the speed signal by feeding a signal directly down that wire, and we'll see the speed signal come through on the cluster over here. I'm just going to turn it that way for now. Then we'll test the fuel pump relay with the diagnostic machine, and we'll test the AC clutch with the diagnostic machine just to make sure they are clicking and everything is working as it should. Then what we're going to do is we're going to fire up, and that's going to prove that the starter is obviously working. We'll look at the dash and make sure that the tax signal is coming through and the coolant temp is working. We'll test the drive-by-wire, obviously, by revving the engine itself, just so we know that all works as it should do. Then we're going to test the VVT-i solenoid using the diagnostic machine. Then I'm going to go and unplug the injectors. I can get to most of them, but this little guy down in here, obviously that is now impossible to get. I will try. If not, I'll do all the other 5 just so you put them off and you can hear them misfiring as they get unplugged. Then what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll look at all the codes on there, which are 0. So we'll just make sure that they are 0 codes on there, exactly as it should be. It's actually removed. Right, so all we're going to do is insert the key. So remember, the ECU looks for the key the second you insert it. There's a wire coming from the ignition barrel telling the ECU that the key has been inserted, so you don't have to turn it or anything like that. So we'll just insert the key and you'll see that the light will stop flashing. Fantastic, so that means the security is off. Now obviously, just to prove, obviously this one's got buttons in. I'm going to get my key that's got absolutely nothing in it. So you see it's a completely empty shell, there's no ceramic chipping, there's no possible way that this thing could be reading a key. And we'll do exactly the same thing. Insert the key, and you'll see a security light goes out. Right, so that's that. So we know immobilizer is gone, so first thing we're going to do is turn the ignition on. You'll see we've got check engine light, we've got battery light, we've got oil light, and the coolant temp's obviously working as well. But first thing we want to do is we want to go over and see the ambient temp. So if we take a look here, you can see 14 degrees. So we know that that's coming through all okay and working exactly as it should. We've already been through the charge light and the oil pressure light. And obviously when we started, you'll see that all of these will go off exactly like you would expect of a running car. And then going to the OBD2 machine, you can see all the live data here. So you can see 66 degrees coolant temp, 28 intake air, 14% off. Okay, I've got my solid beep on there for test mode. I'm going to take my wire that's outputting a signal, and as I push it in, you are going to see the speedo shoot all the way up. Fantastic. Okay, so we know all the wiring from the plug all the way to the cluster is absolutely fine and everything is working as we should. Right, so let's go over and let's test our fuel pump out now. So obviously I've got a Toyota intelligent tester, so I can carry out lots of active tests. So your fuel pump is controlled by the ECU. You'll notice here it says fuel pump relay and fuel pump. Just if you want, I've done a whole video on the fuel pump systems and how they work, and it explains why there's 2 of those. It's a little bit confusing in the way they call it, but yeah. Now we're going to go into that and we're going to press the sideways arrow and it's going to turn the fuel pump on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move the camera as close as I can to the relay in the relay box. Okay, so hopefully you heard that click, and I'll see if you can hear the fuel pump actually running, so I can hear it. Fantastic. Okay, so that's all working. Next thing we're going to do is going to go back to active test. And we're going to go into AC magnetic clutch relay. We're going to go in there. And then we're going to turn it on. Okay, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to click the magnetic clutch relay. So I'm just going to move the camera over there. So the relay from the magnetic clutch is actually in this little relay box by the ECU box. Okay, fantastic. It's obviously all wired up to the ECU, so all the normal conditions have to be met. You've got to have the pressure switch and the pressure's got to be active and all of that type of jazz. So that's absolutely fine. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move over to starting the engine. Okay, so I'm going to get my earmuffs on because it is quite loud. Once we do the engine, I'm just going to do a quick recap before we do it. So basically the first thing you're testing is the starter, which you'll hear it starting the engine. We'll come straight over to the clocks and we'll look at the tax signal, make sure that's coming through. We'll also check all the lights and everything go out as well. Then we'll look at the coolant temp, which well, we can already see is working, but yeah, just double check that. Then we'll go over, we'll rev the engine itself, we'll come back. Then what we'll do is we'll test the VVT-i solenoid through the machine. What it'll do is it'll retard the cam, so you hear the engine sound really lumpy, and then it'll, as soon as I turn the test off, it'll go back to normal again. Then I'm going to quickly go over and see if I can remove 6, but probably 5 of the injectors, just so you can hear them misfiring as I pull them out one by one. Then we'll come back and we'll look at the codes. Right, so let's get ear protection on. And again, nice and simple, just key in the ignition. Oh, sorry, and just to make you sure, I don't know if I mentioned it, but the OBD2 machine is plugged into the normal OBD2 port in your IS200. So there's nothing fancy there, just your standard OBD2 port that's there. But let's fire her up. Right, so as you can see, when she's running, we've got no check engine light, so that's exactly how it should be when it's running in your vehicle. If you've got a check engine light, something is wrong. You need to read the codes and see what's happening there. So, just to go into the actual trouble codes over here, diagnostic trouble codes, and you'll see we've got flat out 0. So yeah, even though it's automatic ECU, no automatic gearbox, we've got the Atomy on device getting rid of all of those codes. We've got the 2 resistors getting rid of the last 2 codes, which are in the JZX110. So yeah, we have absolutely 0 codes on here. Just remember that if you don't plug in your power steering pressure switch, that will cause a code and that will cause a check engine light. So if you don't have a power steering pressure switch because you didn't get one with your engine, but you do have your old 1G lying around, just grab that manifold pressure sensor from your inlet manifold, plug it in, bolt it on the side here, do whatever you want, but it'll just get rid of that code, okay? Or you can actually fit the power steering pressure switch. They also come on GS300s from 2001 onwards on European models. I think also IS300s have them as well. I can't confirm that, but yeah, your engine should have come with one, but because they're on the hard line for the power steering, that doesn't always make it with your import motor, so you're not always guaranteed to have that. But without something plugged in there, you will get a code and you will get a check engine light, so just bear that in mind. All right, so Roberto, let's get this off for you. If anybody else has any questions or anything you'd like to ask, please feel free to fire a comment in the comment section below. Otherwise, you can message us at our Facebook page and we'll try and get back to you as soon as you possibly can. But yeah, it is Christmas Day. I am going to go home now. And so everyone, Merry Christmas. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you again hopefully next week and into the new year. Cheers. Bye-bye.